Hello, everyone. This is the final panel of the day, which is pretty much related with the previous talk of the Vegan Farm Sanctuary team. This is particularly exciting because we'll be watching 73 Cows, a BAFTA award-winning short documentary by Alex Lockwood. And we are humbled to have Jay and Katya today here. Hope they're also live now in the background, at least. You will get to know in the film Jay and Katya, and they are hopefully going to be with us here today. Without further ado, we'll start the screening and we will see you in 15 minutes after the film. We will have the interview with Alex Lockwood and hopefully Jay and Katya.
You were quite feral, really, being on a farm. As soon as you could toddle, you were outside, sort of running amongst the cows as far as it was safe, and quite an outdoor life, really. My granddad was an engineer, and my ambition was to work at Rolls-Royce and follow in his footsteps. But for various reasons, I completely failed at school, so that wasn't an option. I think when you're young, you copy what other people do, particularly when you've got a strong father figure and he's running a farm. You know, there are ways to handle farm animals that you have to follow simply to get the job done. I began to sort of feel conscious of the fact that the animals had feelings, and sort of led to feelings of unease about actually eating them when we raised them. And you realise that they do have personalities and they experience the world. They're not just sort of robots that eat and sleep. I couldn't sort of disconnect that feeling of having to get the job done from the fact that they were individuals rather than just sort of units of production, or just more than a number, really.
I came to Bradley Nook Farm in 2006 as a student who had to go to an English-speaking country for an assignment. And I chose to drop city life for 2 months and work on a farm. Jay was talking about how he doesn't like very much what he's doing with the cattle farming, and that he really would like to do something different. And by the end of the 2 months, he said, why don't you come and live with me, and we start something completely different. I came here with the intention of changing the farm to something that would not involve taking animals to the abattoir.
Taking them to the abattoir, which is what we often did being small farmers. We only had 1 or 2 animals to be slaughtered at any one time. You felt as if you were betraying them because you'd made friends with them, if you like. And so to all of a sudden, one day, load them into a trailer, something they'd not experienced before. And you knew that you were taking them to what must be a terrifying experience. It was soul-destroying, that's how it felt. It was It was very difficult to do, but wanting to keep the farm working as a farm, I just needed to keep doing it until I could find what else to do.
I had come 10 years ago to do something different with the farm, and for various reasons it had not happened yet, and I just wanted Jay to get to the position where he can do something different, because it is so obviously destroying him. Looking at Jay and seeing what being trapped in this kind of life did to him was quite painful. We often got so tense that we started having arguments because nobody could cope with the situation. I think I am more capable to harden my heart than Jay, just out of sheer necessity. I sort of had a more utilitarian outlook at, you know, we have to do this and this is what we do, and if we don't do it, then we don't pay the bills. But, you know, what you're doing, and it's horrible. It became clear that we really have to find a solution. What we can do with the farm, to keep the wildlife on the farm, and to get out of cattle farming. It had been suggested from various sources that the best solution would really just to sell up and go away. Selling up the farmyard and 2 fields and, taking the money for so many houses being built and walking off rich people was not something that we wanted to do.
After my father died, I didn't have the excuse really of sort of keeping him happy by maintaining the farm as he wished. But I simply didn't know what else to do. At first, we installed a small number of solar panels, thinking that was a way to kind of offset the environmental impact of the farm. Then we tried to get planning permission for a wind turbine, but that was refused. Somebody told me that you can produce vegetables and crops without animal inputs, so you don't feel that you're implicating animals in your food production. And so it sounded excitingly different and felt like the future.
It was actually quite stressful to then quickly come up with details, seeing the architect and discussing things, what is possible and what do we have to do to get there, and to come up with some kind of plan so that we would not plunge into a complete black hole and, basically drop the farming and end up with nothing. We had the farm assessed, and we knew that we can do something different with the farm and it would be viable.
When you're born on a farm, when your parents have farmed the farm, you want to sort of make things at least as good, I know it's a clumsy way of saying it, as they have been previously. You don't want to sort of feel that you've been responsible for things degrading and literally falling apart. Scary, because it seems so far out after a lifetime of animal farming to sort of say, okay, you can manage without any animals at all by vegan organic agriculture. As winter came to an end, we started to think, well, you've got all these cows on the farm, what'll happen to them? Will he send them to market or maybe send them to slaughter? And I said, well, that wouldn't be a good way to start vegan farming. We'll try and find them places at sanctuaries, but it'll take a long time. We've got to organise this and deal with the reality of the cows leaving the farm, and it's going to be a massive change. You sort of think, am I doing the right thing? It was quite scary for me because I was kind of rejecting everything I'd known up till that day, really. To do something as radical as getting rid of the livestock from the food chain seemed threatening to most of agriculture, I think. It kind of distanced us from the other farmers in the area. In fact, the farm was nicknamed the Funny Farm by some local residents.
I think that it is largely underestimated what pressure farmers feel. I think they could do with more support to look at things differently rather than being attacked. The cost that we had been burdened with from doing what we're doing is basically losing the money that we would have made from sending the animals to slaughter, which would have been, roughly 40 to 50,000 pounds. Accepting that we would lose the income from selling the cattle was not difficult at all. Trusting that there are enough people out there who appreciate what we are doing, appreciate what we are trying to do, and who are willing to support us.
Hello, Teddy. It seemed that it would take a long time before places were found for the animals. We'll have to sort of allocate 6 here and 1 or 2 at another sanctuary. It's going to take a long time.
It took a lot of planning. It took an awful lot of phone calls. And I assume that it was stressful for Jay as well, but he doesn't express that so much. But I know that I was terribly stressed.
So we were amazed when they phoned and said Hillside in Norfolk can take the entire herd all together at one go. Calves and cows can stay together and all the family groups can be preserved. It's an absolutely sort of dream outcome that they can all stay together and live out the rest of their lives. We were very, very pleased.
The day after our cattle had gone, we received the first postcards and letters from people saying how wonderful what we are doing. And a lot of people said, you have restored my faith in humanity. We have now finally managed to achieve the change that I came here to help with in the first place. And although we are still working on it and have not got the end result yet, it is quite a different thing to manage making plans rather than just the same old that you are not really convinced of. I do think that it has changed Jay. The biggest change is, I think that he talks more about what he's thinking and what he's planning and what we're doing, and that is just so beautiful to see. I am not looking on how Jay is destroying himself, but we are actually working together to build up something that is really good and that we both are convinced of, and that is a good thing. That is a good thing.
You can tell this sort of, they don't belong to me anymore somehow. Everything that had bothered me about the process of beef farming in the past, all that burden of responsibility was lifted, and it was just such a relief to know that the animals I'd been looking after would have a happy cowy life for the rest of their lives. I know it sounds soppy, but it was a joy really to learn that the ones who were still living on the farm were going to be saved, literally, and enjoy just being cows.
This is such an emotional story, actually, and every time we see we feel so bad, we feel so emotional. So thank you all for watching, and with that, I'm really delighted to introduce Alex Lockwood, based in the UK. He's a passionate filmmaker, and he focuses on issues of ethics, and Alex uses film as a medium to have a positive impact on the world. His latest film, The End of Medicine, is about zoonotic diseases, on which he has worked with Keegan Khan, Rooney Mara, and Joaquin Phoenix. And it is a very great pleasure to welcome Jay and Katya as well, whom you have just seen in the documentary. Their story is incredibly inspiring, and it's an absolute honor to have the chance to chat with them today about their journey from cattle farming to vegan farming. So this is very emotional. I hope they are here. Yes, Alex Lockwood is here, Jay and Katya is here, and Deniz, my colleague. She's an animal rights activist as well. So thank you very much for coming, Alex, Jay, and Katya.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so without losing more time, I would like to ask the first question to Alex. Alex, this is such an incredible story, actually, that is slowly but very, very deeply moving into viewers' hearts. I wonder what the story behind the documentary was. How did you hear about Jay and Katya? And more importantly, how did you get into their world? Because it's a very delicate life at such a turning point and at a very difficult time for them, as we see it in their eyes.
Yeah, so basically, I was making films that were quite corporate, and I didn't enjoy that job at all. And I said to myself, I just want to make a documentary in my spare time that will be my own, you know, and will be about something that I'm passionate about. And I spent a few months looking for ideas, and nothing was working out. And then my wife, Nishat, who's also the producer on the film, she came to me with this article that was about Jay and Katya, and she said this would make a great film. And I was like, wow, that's such an amazing story. But I didn't do anything about it for a while, because I assumed that because it's such a good story that somebody else would already be making this film. So I left it a few weeks, and then I just thought, well, you know, what's the point in not going for it, you know? And so I tried to find Jay and Katya somehow, and managed to find that they had a Facebook page, and I got in touch with Katya through there and just said, would you be interested in having me come and just make this little short film about what you're doing? And luckily they were really welcoming. They said, you know, you can come whenever you want, you can come and film whatever you want. And they were just really welcoming and really open from the very beginning. And so, yeah, it was just a really nice experience, and they were both great to work with.
Yeah, and it's obvious that it requires a lot of trust to open your heart with such at such a difficult time for them. That's why I would like to ask Jay and Katya the next question. Yours was a delicate, intimate, personal story, in fact, and we can see it in your eyes while you speak as the documentary follows. So how do you think Alex was the right person to share your story with, and how has the documentary has influenced your life? Because we see some part of it in the documentary as Katya summarizes it, but how did it influence your life at the farm and the people around you maybe? Has there been a change, transformative, positive change, and you in person?
I think Alex did such a good job because he came with no preconceptions. He didn't direct the film in any way. He didn't. He asked sensitive questions and somehow brought out exactly what we were feeling at that time, and it made it very easy to. Well, we just said what we thought at the time, and Alex filmed it and prompted us occasionally when we dried up, and it was just a really nice experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so natural. There seems to be no interference. It's very obvious and it flows very slowly and naturally. So, and we feel it. We feel the same with you as we watch the documentary. So actually, I also would like to know, because this seems to be a universal fact, maybe, the conventional farmers called your farm, the funny farm, as Jay said. And these types of so-called humiliation and discrimination are usually common with many vegans around the world, including Turkey. We see these verbal or visual attacks, especially on social media, almost every day against vegans and vegan groups. But how did you protect, or have you been able to protect yourself from such a terrible psychological attack, maybe? And have you been able to strengthen yourself against this?
Well, I think we knew what we were doing was right for us. It was what we needed to do in our lives. And it's it's transformed our lives. That's all I can say. And since the film was made, I think so many people are realizing that keeping animals is a terrible thing to do, and it's literally destroying the planet. So we feel in every way that we did the right thing, we're doing the right thing, and so criticism just doesn't bother me at all, because I think, well, maybe one day you'll catch up, I hope.
Well, that's Jay. He can do that. I have to say, I have really struggled. It has really got to me, and in particular with a number of farmers we were involved with. There was such conflict. It really very much got to me. It was very hard to deal with for me. And yeah, I think everything really got to me. Also, you know, after making the decision, you know, coming to terms with the fact what we did before, that was also for quite a while a big issue for me. You know, that I did write numbers down who would go to the abattoir, and that I did pack them in the trailer. You know, just thinking about it from a different perspective, and that was hard.
No, you can't deny the past, but you have to think, what can I do from now? How can I change today to make the difference that I need to make? I think that's the only way to cope with it, particularly for people who've been involved in the industry, such as ourselves. You can't deny what you did in the past, but I think it's important to say, well, I only did it because I really didn't know how to change. And once we found the way to change, we took that opportunity. And I think that was the important thing, and that's what's made it possible.
Actually, my next question was related to that, because even in some parts of Turkey, I met women. I also used to make documentaries in the past, and in the northeastern part of Turkey, I saw women who didn't want to kill their cows, but their husbands wanted to. So because they were the ones who were taking care of them, and they were the ones who spent days without their husbands, and they wrote songs to those cows, and they didn't want to kill them. But, and I'm sure the price that you paid, you said in the documentary that there were a lot of price, maybe in the background, but you were ready for that to some extent. But there might be some people who feel the same with you. So what could be the easy way for a transformation for them? Is there anything that you can suggest? I know there are many things that are related to it, economic, social, even cultural, but would you have any suggestions?
Well, I think there's an association with masculinity and power associated with meat eating, and it's seen as, you know, the American stereotype of the Texan farmer or the oil man or the successful businessman eating the gigantic steak and feeling empowered by it. But I think the real strength is to do what you believe to be right and what you feel to be right, and not feel that you've got to follow cultural stereotypes, as you say, and say, okay, so maybe veganism is considered to be a feminine thing, possibly in some parts of the world. Well, so what? Be big enough to defy convention. I think that's the true courage. The real courage is to do what you think you need to do, not to do what other people expect you to do.
I think what is making it easier maybe to think about it also is, at least in this part of the world, that climate change and the impact of agriculture are becoming more and more widely known, and that can be a reason for people to reduce livestock and for people to eat less meat. I have no idea, I have to say, what the situation is in Turkey, if that applies to Turkey, but you know, you can look at your land and see what options you have apart from livestock with that focus. You don't, you know, if you find thinking about the animals is too hard, there's a new focus which is just as important.
Yes, there is. Thank you very much, by the way. Maybe Dennis has some questions to ask you, because we have 5 minutes to the Q&A section. I think there are a few more questions. Dennis, would you like to go on?
Yes. Oh my God. I have so many questions, but I'll try to be short. Alex, actually, I was wondering, we spoke about this before actually, but I'm still thinking that one of the most important ways in which the documentary affected me as an activist was that it really changed my mindset about how I approach what I might have actually believed to be my enemy. And that was a huge shift for me. And I was wondering if you already intended for this to be one of the messages and the effects in the documentary, or if that developed naturally, and in which ways it influenced you as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, because a lot of films and a lot of things that promote veganism are very anti-farming community. It's almost like vegans versus farmers, and that approach will never inspire change within the farming community. It will just alienate farmers. And if veganism is really going to get anywhere and really take off in the way that it needs to, then farmers need to be on our side and vice versa. And so like that wasn't, when we went into making the film, that wasn't actually something I'd given that much thought to, but I went to meet Jane Catcher before we filmed anything. And I think we probably spoke for about 2 hours or something like that. And we just went over everything. And that's when it became really apparent that actually people who are farming animals aren't just, that they're doing it because of so many things, so many cultural reasons, tradition, just the whole idea of what am I going to do if I'm not doing this? And so what farmers really need is support rather than people saying, you know, you're the ones who are causing this.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And actually, I want to, in a similar way, ask Jay and Katja the same question, in the sense of, Katja, you actually do mention, we can see you mention about the way activists approach farmers. And I think this is incredibly important because there are so many activists today for whom the farmer is a very easy target. But when we look at it, actually, it's the same mechanism under which actually we all suffer. And so instead of having solidarity, we're actually attacking the people that we should have a much like different nature of a communication with. And so I was really curious to hear more from you about this, like if you could elaborate on the experience, on your vision about this, etc.
Oh, gosh, I don't know that I have a vision. I have to say I was surprised because we did get the occasional insult from vegan activists who accused us that we had now dumped the responsibility of our cattle to hillside. I don't know. I think there is probably a difference between smallish family farmers like us and big, you know, industry, you know, tens of thousands of animals. I think there might be a difference in people's mindset. You know, a farmer like Jay, he was born on the farm. The family's been farming for generations, and has a more of a connection with the animals, and is therefore probably more easily approached about doing something about the actual individual animals than somebody who's just, you know, counting the dollars and bulldozing the cows into a skip and stuff like that. I think there is a difference, but you know, if small farmers can be convinced that there is help and goodwill out there, I'm sure that would make a big difference because they have the closer connection to the to society. Yeah.
Thank you.
Not sure what to do about big business farming. I know very little about it.
Yes, definitely. Were you saying something, Jay? I didn't interrupt you, well.
No, I was just, our farm is sandwiched between two industrial farms, poultry production units, and it belongs, they have, I think, a couple of hundred farms around Britain and Ireland, and they belong to an American corporation who are the biggest importers of soya and imported proteins. And they're supposed to be responsible for more destruction of forests and natural grasslands than any other corporation in the world. And we've got these people on both sides of our farm. So it's it just shows the massive contrast between us and this enormous conglomeration who are really destroying the earth. And we're trying to preserve our tiny part of the earth as best we can, but these other people simply don't care. It's just profits for them. And I think small farmers like us could be persuaded and could be encouraged and shown how to do things differently, because for us it isn't just profits, it's a real connection with what we do and an enjoyment of our environment. We want to make it better.
Yes, and in our previous session, we had a vegan organic farming experience from Turkey. Hope they would meet you online at least in the future. So maybe they can get experience from you. So we will have to finish at 10 past 10 actually, and I would like to get to the question and answer section because there are a few questions, and some people congratulate you. They say it's a wonderful thing that you do. Maybe you're also reading that. They say great story. I just want to add a question from Mine, who's been working in the organization as well. She was in the livestock industry before going vegan, and she's asking you, you have refused everything you have believed for your whole life. And I love hearing each person's inner transformation experience. So since you're on the other side of the perspective now, how do you feel like when you look back to your old mindset, being okay with the animal slaughter?
Well, I wasn't okay with it because I've been a vegetarian for probably 40 years. So I've not eaten meat for more than half my life. It's just that that's the way the farm was. That's what we did. And everybody will tell you, popular farming commentators in this country, farming celebrities who are on British television, they're all constantly saying how proud they are of what they do. And
How much they love the animals.
Well, that's it. There's a program called Country File in this country, and last week on Country File, the presenter who came to this farm with the BBC to film an episode of Country File, he visited a rare breeds farm last week, and he was saying what a good job this young farmer who's just starting off in agriculture and building up his flock of sheep. And he says, "Oh, I know how it feels. It's in your heart, isn't it?" And I thought, well, I don't know. I mean, that's what you're up against. Everything we've heard for the past decades about meat eating and its the sentience of animals and the destruction of the planet, and you've got young farmers coming into the industry with that degree of commitment and belief. So it is quite a difficult thing we've got to do, but there are people like us who can be take the opportunity when it arises, because I was already looking for a way out. I think that was the thing. That was a secret that I wanted to change. And so when the change presented itself, I leapt at it. So maybe I was rather an unusual example, I've got to admit.
Yes, and we see that change with you, as Katya says. You're being more open and talkative, as Katya says. So thank you.
No, watching myself in the film, although it's a wonderfully made film,
Definitely.
It's painful, to be honest, and I avoid it. I'm sorry, Alex.
I had to turn the sound down.
No way, really. I'm sure it's so universal that it doesn't even need a translation. It doesn't even need a language. So this was very amazing. So there is one more question. If you were to be speaking to a farmer, what would be the one advice could you say to them in this context?
I'd say forget tradition, heritage, forget everything you've known up till now. The way we farm animals at the moment doesn't work on any level. It's unacceptable from animal welfare point of view, and it's unacceptable from a human point of view, because it diminishes the people who take part in it, and it's increasingly recognized as one of the drivers of planetary destruction, because more and more land is being taken over to grow crops for livestock. It's insane. We can't go on like this. apart from, well, it's a second big thing we've got to change alongside the use of fossil fuels. So there's two massive things to tackle: food production and fuel use. And it's difficult to say which is, I suppose in the end, fossil fuel use will be the worst. But then if we destroy all the forests and all the grassland to feed livestock, is that better? I don't think it is.
Okay, and there is one more question. The other one is a comment. It's a great story. I just wonder why they couldn't get the coats out of the cows' ears after the couple's perspective on cows changed.
The what?
The ear tags.
The ear tags, she means.
That's illegal.
No.
That's illegal. It's a legal requirement.
I think it's to do as much, well, it's to do with disease control, that just as people might have to have a COVID passport, possibly in the future, cows have a health passport, because you can't say what is your name and how are you today. You have to keep records, and those records have to be associated with the animal through the use of an ear tag, unfortunately. So it's just a practical thing. And even the cows at Hillside have to have their ear tags maintained. So it's just one of those things. And I'm sure they don't really notice that wearing them after a while.
Okay, thank you very much. Denise, would you like to have one more question, or?
Yes, actually, Alex, we were wondering if you could speak about the upcoming documentary, actually.
Yeah, sure. So it's a documentary feature called The End of Medicine, and we've been making it for about 2 years. And it's about how our relationship with animals, the way that we treat them, consume them, has a direct impact on these massive emerging existential health threats like pandemics and antibiotic resistance. And obviously we started making it, and it's a film about pandemics, and then a pandemic happens, which was a bit weird, but we finally finished the film, and hopefully in a few weeks or so we'll know where it's going to be released and everything. So yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing how that goes down.
Alex, I assume that you started making the documentary after the pandemic broke out. So it was...
No, yeah. So the film was supposed to be this film that was going to warn people that if we treat animals in a certain way, this is the result of that. And now it's a film that still says that, but also whilst reacting to the fact that that's directly happened. So it's a bit strange. So we've used COVID-19 as a kind of device to explain all of this process and why treatment of animals isn't just bad for the planet, but it's also bad for our health, as well as being obviously very inhumane for the animals.
Absolutely, yes, thank you. Actually, we would love to show the trailer so that people know what movie we were talking about. Would that work, Öykü?
Yes, if you don't mind, maybe for the translators, we can say goodbye to them, and maybe we can say goodbye to everyone, so that the translators would end, and we can show the teaser, and then we can summarize the teaser in Turkish, maybe. Yeah. Okay, great. Right.
As soon as I was old enough to understand there was a job that was involving helping animals, that was the career for me. As soon as I could speak, I wanted to be a vet.
So, why have you quit your job?
When you look at the origins specifically of COVID-19, we know it's come from some of these wet markets in China. And for many of us in the West, we look over there and we say, okay, well, perhaps they should close down. But we should also look in our own back garden and just look at how we are treating animals here.
Yeah, it's easy to say that the problem started over there. It's not our fault. It's much harder to turn the mirror onto ourselves and look at how we are increasing our risk for these infectious diseases.
The more I looked into it and the more research I looked at, it was sort of like going down a rabbit hole. The more I went on, the more I struggled with a sort of concern that I was facilitating something which would be potentially very dangerous to human health further down the line.
We have the new pandemic already emerging, a pandemic of people dying in their millions every year because of antibiotic resistance, because of the way that we've kept animals for all of these years.
I just want to share my story, and I want people to know what I've learned about disease.
All that is true is sustainable. Lies are not sustainable.
We are very excited for this film, Alex, and hopefully we will watch it soon because it's a very important and current topic. And we would like to thank you very much for joining us. This has been such a pleasure to meet you, and hope we can continue to keep in touch. And I would like to give this big kiss to your dog. She already looks very peaceful.
You're muted, Katja.
You're muted, sorry. Ask to unmute, okay.
She's, we had a thunderstorm and she was very scared.
Oh, okay. Alex and Jay, Katja, thank you. Dennis, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to repeat what you said. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's really a great pleasure to meet you. And we're very happy that our audience got to know you as well. So thank you for taking the time and thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye. Okay, so this was the last session actually, and tomorrow we are going to have wonderful speakers like Kip Anderson and Carol Adams. They'll be pre-recorded actually because they were not available for tomorrow. But we will have very interesting topics like speciesism in children's literature and cinema, animal rights law, health, plant-based diet. We have workshops for vegan food as well, once again. So thank you. I will also summarize this in Turkish, or we will do it together with Deniz if there's no translation. I'm not sure right now. Okay. Tamam, sanıyorum özetimizi geçtik. Thank you very much. Once again, in English, we'll be waiting for you tomorrow at 10 o'clock in Turkey time. So hope to see you tomorrow again. Thank you for joining us, with your questions, with your comments. Thank you to all our panelists ve tüm izleyicilerimize. Şimdi direkt Türkçe'ye geçtim. Translation devamı bilmiyorum şu anda, kusura bakmayın. Ama Türkçe kapanışı da yapmak istiyoruz. Yarın yine harika konuklarımız olacak. Türcülükten, çocuk sineması ve kitaplarında, edebiyatında türcülükten hukuk mücadelesine Kip Anderson ve Carol J. Adams bize yine önceden kaydedilmiş, ne yazık ki müsait olmadıkları için önceden kaydettiğimiz röportajlarla bizimle olacaklar. Umarım yarın yine tekrar 10'da buluşuruz. Web sitemizde anket var. Aslında tüm festival bittikten sonra doldurmanızı isteriz anketi. Ama şimdiden heveslenip doldurmak isterseniz size engellemeyeceğiz. Çok teşekkür ederiz katkılarınız için. Eğer sorularınız olursa da bize ulaşabilirsiniz web sitemizden, sosyal medya hesaplarımızdan. Önerilerinizi bekliyoruz. Her sene biraz daha iyi yapmak, hatta belki yarın bile daha iyi yapmak için. Çok teşekkürler. Tüm ekip arkadaşlarıma da bu arada. Arkada bir sürü insan çalışıyor. Bugüne kadar da çok insan çalıştı. Yarın belki herkes arkadaşlarına iletirse çok seviniriz. Daha fazla kişiye ulaşmak istiyoruz. Herkese sevgiler.
Çok teşekkürler. Thank you everyone for joining and for doing 12 hours of Vegfest. See you tomorrow.